Imagine death everywhere. For 30 years, a father and son faced ridicule for seeking the smoking gun behind the Earth's worst day, the moment 75% of all life vanished. They were told their evidence was a coincidence, an object the size of Mount Everest, moving at 45,000 miles per hour, hitting the Earth. But the real story isn't the impact. It's the 30-year war to prove it happened. This is the science story behind the greatest discovery of all time. So how does the greatest story you've never heard of begin? It starts with family, and the most unlikely chance discovery imaginable. Walter Alvarez was inspired by his father Luis, a physicist, to pursue science. But Walter chose his own path, geology. In the 1970s, geology had a hot new topic of its own, plate tectonics, recently confirmed and still being investigated. Walter went to Italy to contribute to plate tectonics, studying ancient rock layers near Gubbio to date the magnetic field reversals used to track the position of the continents through geologic time. A mass extinction was quite literally the last thing on his mind. Buried in the rock was a narrow clay band, the KT boundary, dated 66 million years ago. It marked the stark transition from a life-filled era to a barren rock devoid of life. Walter Alvarez's genius lay in asking a profoundly obvious question. Standing at the KT boundary, staring at the stark difference between the rock below it and the rock above, one thought crept in. How long did this actually take to form? This question was radical because the prevailing view held that extinctions occurred gradually. Yet, this thin clay band showed a shockingly abrupt end to life. What if it had happened fast? The question nagged at him, enough that he set his plate tectonics work aside to chase it. Walter needed a way to measure how quickly that clay layer had formed. He didn't know how yet, so he did what many of us do when we are unsure. He asked his dad. Walter's father, Luis Alvarez, was a physicist of immense renown, a giant in his field. His vast experience allowed a unique approach to the problem. A 1968 Nobel laureate, Luis Alvarez designed the atomic detonator for the Fat Man bomb used at Nagasaki. Though not a geologist, his expertise offered a fresh perspective. Luis pointed Walter towards iridium, an element exceptionally rare in the Earth's crust, but constantly drifting down from space as fine dust. Because that dust settles at a slow, steady rate, the amount buried in the clay could work like a clock for how long the layer took to form. The iridium analysis came back 30 times higher than normal, far more than slow-settling space dust could ever account for. It hadn't trickled in over the ages, it had arrived all at once. Something otherworldly marked the clay, but a global asteroid impact was simply unthinkable. Their initial suspect was actually a nearby supernova, another iridium source. Luis realized a supernova would leave behind a telltale radioactive isotope called plutonium-244. The absence of plutonium-244 proved it wasn't a local supernova. That left only one possibility. The source had to be an asteroid, far larger than anyone dared to imagine. An asteroid impacted Earth 66 million years ago. This was the cause of the mass extinction, which occurred rapidly and on a global scale. It was one of the great discoveries in the history of science, and Walter and Luis Alvarez were the very first to see the full scope of the mystery and realize the horror. So, case closed, right? Oh, you couldn't be more wrong. Walter and Luis, along with Frank Asaro and Helene Michel, published their findings in Science. They concluded a giant impact caused the extinction event. This got huge publicity because dinosaurs are awesome. The idea spread fast, exciting people across the public and the scientific community. What Walter and Luis didn't expect was how hesitant the rest of the scientific community was to accept their idea. Many scientists, whose careers championed slow, incremental extinctions, responded with resistance and outright aggression. For decades, the establishment favored Deccan Traps volcanism because it was gradual and predictable, unlike the catastrophic impact Luis was proposing. Dismissing him as just a physicist, they argued the Iridium actually came from volcanoes and not space. And Luis Alvarez did not respond quietly. In one interview, he said paleontologists were, quote, really not very good scientists. They're more like stamp collectors. He dismissed other critics outright, suggesting one geologist's career was already finished, simply for taking the other side and not being open to the possibility they were wrong. This was not a polite scientific disagreement. It was a war over careers, over prestige, and over the truth of what actually ended the reign of the dinosaurs. And slowly, the scientific community split into two camps with their own names: the incrementalists, who believed extinction was gradual, and the catastrophists, who believed it could happen in an instant. The Alvarezes went through professional hell during this stretch. Luis knew this was a defining moment for himself and for his son. If you had lived through this fight in 1980, which side do you think you'd have taken? Tell us in the comments. Then, a discovery was made that turned the entire case on its head. In 1984, a key discovery shifted the conversation in the Alvarez's favor: shocked quartz, discovered in a KT boundary clay layer in Montana. Shocked quartz can only be formed by an immensely powerful shockwave, a nuclear blast, or an asteroid impact. Volcanic eruptions, however massive, simply don't produce this. The impact camp had just landed their strongest piece of evidence yet. The skeptics dismissed the evidence as interesting, but not conclusive. They had one real question. If there was a massive impact, where was the crater? Because no crater meant no impact. It was that simple. But amazingly, the crater had already been found, but no one had connected the dots. In 1978, 2 full years before the Alvarez paper, Mexican oil geophysicist Glenn Penfield and Antonio Camargo surveyed the Yucatan coast for oil using gravity signatures. They unexpectedly found a massive 100-mile-wide buried structure straddling the Yucatan coast. It was one of history's largest impact craters. And they even thought it might involve the extinction of the dinosaurs. They presented at a conference, but they didn't choose the right one. The room was full of oil geologists. No one connected the significance of what they'd found. And in a moment of pure dramatic irony, every key player was away at a completely separate conference. The history-changing breakthrough happened in the wrong room. This discovery would stay lost for over 10 years. And this isn't the last mystery like this we'll dig into. If that's your kind of thing, make sure you're subscribed. But then, things got difficult. In 1988, at the height of the debate, Luis Alvarez passed away, never seeing his theory validated. His son, Walter, would have to carry the torch alone. His grief must have been overwhelming. He'd lost both his father and his partner. It seemed like the impact theory might never be confirmed. But then, a chance meeting of a graduate student and a journalist would completely change the game. Alan Hildebrand, a graduate student studying impact evidence at a site in Haiti, was convinced a major crater existed somewhere in the Caribbean or Gulf region. He just didn't know where to start looking. In 1990, his team presented their research at a conference in Houston. In the audience that day was a Houston Chronicle science reporter, Carlos Byers. And Byers wasn't just any reporter. Years earlier, he'd been in the audience when those same geophysicists presented their gravity survey discovery of the crater, and he recognized exactly what Hildebrand's team was now describing. Byers talked to Hildebrand and put him in direct contact with Penfield. The two men teamed up, determined to track down actual rock from the crater itself. In fact, 10 years earlier, Penfield had already tried. He was told the original samples, collected by an oil company back in the 1960s, had been lost, destroyed in a warehouse fire. But working together, Hildebrand and Penfield found a handful of samples that had survived, distributed abroad before the fire happened. Hildebrand knew exactly what to look for, and the core showed unmistakable signs of an impact. All that was left, dating them. And a few weeks later, 66 million years old. This was the dinosaur killer, the final missing piece in the 66 million year old murder of 3/4 of life on Earth. In 1991, the connection was finally made public. It was named the Chicxulub Impact Crater after the small town on the Yucatan Peninsula nearest where it was discovered. It would still take until March of 2010 for the scientific community to formally close the case. An international panel of 41 scientists reviewed over 30 years of evidence and ruled unanimously in favor of the impact hypothesis. The case was closed, and Walter Alvarez was there to see it, and his father, Luis, was there in spirit. This story perfectly encapsulates what is required to make incredible discoveries: curiosity, the willingness to ask a question nobody else thought to ask; persistence, the refusal to stop even when the entire world tells you that you're wrong; and often, pure dumb luck. Luis and Walter Alvarez didn't just discover what killed the dinosaurs. They proved that science, real science, isn't about being liked. It's about following the data and never giving up. And if this is the kind of thing you want to understand more of, this is what we do here. Like, comment, or subscribe, and let's figure the rest of it out together. WizDome out.